the 2023, a year back. Jesus Christ, let's start over. That just sucked.
That was probably your worst one since your first one. All right. You're
And by the way, you also, in the last go-around, you took 3 takes. So I just want to remind you of how bad yours was, because it never happens, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Try harder. Okay, bye.
On this episode of Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered, we look back at 2023, the big winners, the losers, and we forecast what 2024 is going to look like. All the controversy that's likely to come. Going to be an incredible show. Tune in.
You talk about it privately, we talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast.
Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, James Dwiggins, along with my co-host, Crazy Uncle Keith.
Yes, sir.
Keith, tell us who our guests are today.
This super brilliant tall guy named James Dwiggins.
Oh, stop
and
it.
a perfectly bald head-shaped guy named Keith Robinson.
Yeah,
that's right. Boys and girls, this is time for James and I talking about our thoughts about 2023 and our predictions and insights for 2024.
We're also Men in Black today. Just want to point that out.
I'm in Navy, actually. You probably
whatever.
can't tell because it's dark in here. But.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So let's start. Let's kick it off.
Let's do it.
Let's go. I'm going to be the host for this one. We're switching microphones. I'll be the host. I'll ask the questions, and then we'll both give the answers. Let's take it right out of the gate. Who do you think were the biggest winners in real estate for 2023?
Biggest winners in real estate for 2023. Going to go a little crazy here on this one. I'm going to say Remax and Anywhere. I know. And the reason I say that is they settled out. And as obviously everybody can tell, everyone's getting sued. Copycat lawsuits are happening. They were first to exit. I've been pretty vocal about the fact that we need to be doing a settlement for all sorts of reasons I'm sure we'll talk about at some point today. But I think they were smart in their strategy to get this thing behind them so they could continue to move forward and not have this hanging over their head, their stock price, their initiatives, their leadership. It's just yucky. And they've got themselves in a good spot to focus on 2024 and continue to move forward as a company on their initiatives without any of that drama. So I think they were the biggest winners in 2023. So
that is a really good one. I think there's power and clarity, even though they did stroke massive checks to get out of it.
I mean, but really, did they though?
Well, look.
I mean, it's a big amount of money. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just
no. But, yeah, they did, right? If you came to my house and took half the money out of my bank account, it would hurt, right? So yeah, it's a lot of money.
In the grand scheme of how nasty that could be, they did pretty well on that.
It's there's still a reason that they are on your biggest winners list. But half of all your cash is still half of all your cash. All right. I will pivot off a little bit. For me, the biggest winners in real estate for 2023 were home builders. We had a market where your sellers were rate locked and not putting their homes on the market. Buyers were understandably, hyper interest rate sensitive. And the home builders raked in with both of those things because, number one, they could control the inventory. They were just swinging hammers as fast as they could, putting homes into the marketplace. And the consumer and the industry were much more comfortable with communicating about delivering on a rate buy down. So you had situations where there were homes available, where in other parts there were not. And they could offer a rate that was more competitive than if you went to look at a residential resale property in your same city. So
and there's a shortage of housing in the country. So
massive shortage of housing.
Economics, right?
Yep. And they did very well in 2023. So U.S. home builders, specifically the bigger ones, but really all of them, were the biggest real estate winners for 2023. Okay, can't talk about winners without talking about losers. So I know what yours will be. But just for fun, let's act like I don't.
The biggest loot.
I mean, on this specific question, you've been relatively verbose.
But it's coming from a place of, I think sometimes people don't realize this is not from a place of trying to tear things down. It's a frustration of the fact that like it's really important.
Yeah, like that's a great point. Before we actually give the people the answer, look, love tells you when you got food in your teeth at a party, right? Like if you really care about somebody and love them enough, you'll tell them when they got spinach dip in their grill so that they don't run around the party looking like an idiot, right? And so when I hear your impassioned pleas on this specific topic, which we are about to get to, I think of it as you loving them enough to tell them that they've got spinach dip in their teeth at the party. Okay, biggest losers in real estate for 2023. Hit us.
National Association of Realtors and a byproduct, the industry. I think it's very clear that, I think it's very clear that NAR's PR message is completely, utterly flawed. And, the industry was expecting one thing, the opposite occurred. Certainly the industry is trying to figure out what is going on over there. It's been one blow after the other. I mean, even technically 2024, another blow. And, I think that, and the byproduct is the industry that backs them, and it deserves better, to put it bluntly. And that organization needs a massive overhaul. That PR team is completely, utterly off track. It has absolutely no concept of what its membership wants to hear. They need to get in the field, belly to belly with people, and start having conversations. Take the playbook they've got, throw the whole goddamn thing out the window, because it is so flawed. I've never seen an organization more tone deaf right now. And I feel bad for it. Well, hold on. I feel bad because
it's just spinach in the teeth.
There's good people there trying to do good things, but they're just not. Like, one of the best things I ever learned in leadership was, if you don't know what's going on, go get belly to belly with your people. And in our organization, we do a survey every year. Every single year we survey. It's extensive, our franchise space, about every single thing we're doing right and wrong. We love to hear the good stuff. We focus on the bad stuff, and we spend a lot of time figuring that out. And I'll get off of this, but NAR is in a bad spot. It's so important that they fix this, because this industry, you and I have spent enough time to understand that this industry will collapse without them. And I think people are naive to think that that's not the case if you just do some research on the things that we benefit from. Yeah. But I am very concerned for the realtor community if there isn't a significant shift from top to bottom over there in how it's governed, what they do, who's involved, the decision-making process. And so, unfortunately, I think the industry was the biggest loser in 2023. So,
yeah, I won't pile on. I will echo two sentiments. One, there are some really great people working really hard, trying to do the right thing over there, and they care deeply.
No argument.
Yeah, and it just feels like they're using an antiquated playbook. Like it feels like the communication, the way it's being done, there is a massive lack of authenticity and transparency and vulnerability, right? And this isn't the time for, and I get it. I do understand the bigger your organization gets, the more people get involved, the more things are done by committee. I understand all of that, and there's some reasons that you have to do that. And there are some times where you just got to hit lights on, camera on, and just talk to your people. And not that NAR's looking.
Just be real. The messaging that's coming out of that organization, it's like, Jesus, we're not children. Like, we understand it's a mess. Let's just call it a mess. Call a spade a spade. And then let's be adults and be like, we realize it's a mess. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to give them to you as we get them.
My best example is, I've even incorrectly said that NAR's had a lack of communication. And then someone straightened me out. They're like, no, we've communicated a ton. We've sent a ton of emails. And I was like, that's the problem. It's the vehicle of email isn't how you communicate to your membership, right? Like, of course you have to send some emails, but I don't want to run NAR, and they aren't asking me to, probably because they're too smart to ask me to run NAR, but I would be doing a short form video, long form video, constant update communication as much as humanly possible into my organization. I would be paying gobs of money for retargeting to the industry so that they couldn't help but log into TikTok to do their dumb dances. See my stupidest trend in real estate later. They couldn't log into TikTok or anywhere else and not hear from me and just hear me talking to them earnestly and as honestly as I could in the moment. And I know that's a dramatic oversimplification, which I am guilty of, but whatever their version of that would be for an organization. All right, I'm going to shift us to my answer for the biggest losers in real estate for 2023.
I bet I can guess it.
Yeah, I bet you get to. Yeah.
Go.
It is the beleaguered, battered first-time home buyer.
Ah, knew it.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've probably had the worst year. I don't have any data to back this up. This is just opining on opinion, but it's been a terrible year for the first-time home buyer. Property values continue to go up through most of the country. Interest rates spiked and doubled over a 2-year period. It's just the stuff with NAR and what may happen with how buyers pay the commission and the fact that they could be personally responsible for that on the other side of this in the not too distant future. There has been nothing but affordability headwinds for the first-time home buyer. Maybe we can edit in the clip of me asking Chris George with CMG about 100-year mortgages and him laughing in my face. But we need to find a solution for the first-time home buyer.
Well, shit just got harder too because
and it's gonna continue to get harder because it's and the reason that I care so much and maybe I'll get on my soapbox for just a second is we're at, and I don't want to be this may not be true. Okay, I could be a little doomsdaying here, but I think there's a real possibility that we have the first generation that just says, forget it. I almost dropped my first F-bomb. That almost says, forget it on buying a home. It's just not worth it, right? And for most folks, buying a home is the one investment that they got right. It is a huge wealth multiplier historically. And I don't know what will happen if we have a large percentage of a generation that just says, forget it. This is too hard. And we need to change some things on that. We need to make it more accessible for the first-time home buyer. Don't worry about me who's going to be trading out of, how many homes I'm on. Like, I'll figure it out. But let's figure out how to help the first-time home buyer get access and get their foot in the door in this marketplace.
So the biggest largest generation, it's the largest generator of wealth in this country is housing, period.
Correct.
End of story,
Correct.
Especially from generational wealth.
Yep.
And
well, you look at all the statistics for families who buy a home versus families who don't, and I mean the trend line is this massive difference. There's a massive difference in the trend line of generating wealth for those families.
Hey Keith, can I take you off subject for a sec?
Yeah, sure.
Can you give the viewers and listeners your 3-minute overview of where you think the market will be in 2024? Just since you're kind of talking about that, like with rates sort of coming down, kind of leveling off. Obviously,
rates have definitely come
down.
So
give everybody your sort of 3 to 4 minute sort of overview where you think we'll land this year.
Okay. The starter gun went off for 2024 about 60 days ago. We just all missed it because it was at the worst possible time for us as an industry because none of us were paying attention. Rates started to go down. Rates are down significantly. I believe the trend direction, maybe is a better way to say it, the trend direction for rates in 2024 will be down. And this is the first time in a long time, perhaps ever, but certainly in my career, we're very used to when rates go down, it unlocks some buyers, right? Every time you go down on a percentage point, there's some people who couldn't afford to buy who would, or people who bailed out of the market who come back in. That's awesome. We're used to that. We know how to model for that. What we've never had is now in today's market, because the most of the research that I've looked at says the sweet spot for sellers to come back into the marketplace, because there's a bunch of people with sub 5% interest rates. There's a bunch of people with, everyone talks about 2.3, and sure, those people exist, but most of them are between 4 and 5 or 4 and 5.5, 4.5 to 5.5. So when rates get down to 5, it will unlock pretty much anyone who wants to move because they have massive equity appreciation over the last several year period. So every time interest rates go down 1%, you've unlocked not only buyers, which we're very used to, but you also unlock sellers. Yeah. And that is going to create this wave effect, right? This amplification effect where it is going to be, I was positive about 2024. What I've been saying prior to recently is things are going to get better. It's just not going to feel like it. Right? Like it's going to get better, but it's not going to feel amazing. If rates continue to do what they're doing now, barring inflationary events, and there are things that out there, like war is an inflationary event, there are things that are out there in the place that could create it. But barring some sort of upward inflationary pressure event, I think we're going to have a robust 2024. I think there is an opportunity to gain market share for agents and companies who keep their eye on the ball. The problem is that oftentimes, like it's gonna start in February, in my opinion. It'll start to get better in February, going into March, and we will have a robust summer. You can't wait until you notice it to start. So the agents and companies who started 2 months ago already have a big advantage in running the race. And every agent and company that waits another month or two to start, you're going to get, you're too far behind.
We already bottomed in Q4, so we're already on the upswing. Yeah,
we're on the upswing has started, and usually it starts in February and March. So it started earlier because of the rate change from the Fed. And so get out there, kids.
What is your, do you think recession, hard landing, soft landing?
Yeah, I am I believe we will have a recession. I hope it's a mild one. There are so many variables. That's a hard one to call. This sounds terrible, but a nice little recession will actually help us with rates even more and speed up the real estate market.
Just how much we want, obviously. Right?
Yeah, if it gets really bad and there's a lot of job loss, then people and people just get scared if it's really bad and they stop making big life decisions. But like a polite little recession would actually help the real estate market even more.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been in a recession, so like
real estate's been in for 2 years. It's our time to come out, right? Yeah. And the country hasn't really had to feel it. So I think they're going to start to feel it. And look, recession used to mean, now we debate on what the actual definition of recession is.
Of course we do.
Yeah, because we debate the definition of everything nowadays, but used to mean 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Will we hit that? Maybe, probably, I think. I'll go with yes, but it doesn't matter so long as it's not great for a little while and there is some pain, and I believe the pain is coming. The U.S. consumer has slowed down dramatically. The U.S. consumer isn't spending as hard as they were anymore. They, I think, are officially out of money, and that when the U.S. consumer slows down, that puts downward pressure on the economy. Downward pressure on the economy leads to downward pressure on rates because they want to stimulate us getting back out there spending money, and that will be good for residential real estate.
Thank you for that. I think it's good. Yep. What's your last question I have for you on that? What's your forecast for home sales this year? NAR's forecasting 4.7, if what I read that Lawrence threw out.
Units? You mean units?
Units. Sorry, units.
Yeah.
My bad. 4.7 million units. What's yours?
4 or 5
on the spot. 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah, I think they're close. I think they're close. I think it's all hinged. I mean, this is as fragile a market. Anything that's new, right? Anytime you're just coming out of it, it's really fragile. And so, I could easily get to a place in my brain where it was 4.2, 4.1, 4. I don't, historical average 5.3. I don't think we get anywhere near there.
No. 2025 should look more like that, but
yeah.
Not
so
sure.
I'm in the 4 or 5-ish camp.
Okay. Yeah, we're on the same page. All right, let's keep it moving.
Okay. Let's switch to tech. Best.
Oh
real
wait,
estate.
are we gonna? I want to do leaders. I thought we had one. We were gonna talk about leaders. Did we miss that?
That's later. That's later.
Fine. All right.
Yeah, that's later. Yeah. Hey, I'm the host this time.
You're right.
Yeah,
I'll
relax,
shut up.
bro.
Go.
All right. Best real estate tech you saw in 2023. What is the best thing you saw out there?
Can I throw a couple?
Well, sure, it's our pod.
Okay, all right. Because I think there's some really interesting stuff going on in the space of AI. For everybody knows, I think AI is the greatest thing ever and also the devil. So everybody knows where I stand on artificial intelligence.
You've done a very good job at covering both sides of the conversation on that.
So,
for sure.
There's some really interesting tech going on in the assistant arena, and I think there's going to be a future here where you're going to see the AI get very intelligent on how it works and understands, each individual, like it just how it integrates in your calendar and just ideas of it seeing that you're going to be 20 minutes late to the appointment and it calls your client automatically and lets them know. I just think there's some really interesting stuff in that space. There's a lot of companies coming out in that space of that assistant. I know Spencer's got one. Spencer Raskoff's got one going on. Howard Tager has one in Voice, which is so cool, by the way, if you haven't seen that.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then I'll throw another one in. So Reimagine AI or RE, I forget which. I'll pull it. Reimagine Home. That's what it is. .ai. I thought was interesting. I know there's some players in this space, but I just think it's fascinating to watch the AI take a crummy looking house and it will change the floors, the walls, refurnish it, and it looks like a completely different home. And I've seen some pretty cool tech that they're doing on that and going, I think there's some very interesting ways to showcase a home in the future, or now actually for that matter, where you can visualize what it can look like versus what it does look like, and in a very cost-effective, easy way. I think there's some really interesting tech going on in that space.
I agree. And the most important things to buyers, and interestingly enough to sellers, because everyone's favorite castle is their own, is photographs. The imagery. Look, real estate is a voyeuristic. It's consumed with its eyes first, and anything you can do to up that, I think, is important and will provide value. We do have to sort of work through some of the disclosure stuff, right? Like if you show me a house that looks one way and I show up and it looks a really different way, I'm kind of pissed as a consumer.
I don't understand what you mean.
Yeah. I almost did a dating analogy, which might have gotten us canceled. I'm glad I didn't. I edited for once. So anyway, I think we got to work through that, but I think you're right. Okay. You said you had a couple. I think some of the stuff that's happening around imagery, I think is really cool. What else do you got?
Milestones is pretty amazing. I think they're doing some really cool stuff there. You and I have talked about that quite a bit. I have to plug the fact that we're all involved in, the industry's involved in a venture called Raise, just full disclosure. And we're involved in that business. Check that out. I think that will be, I'm biased, but I genuinely believe the timing of that product and coming to market this year is going to be one of the most important products in residential real estate for value proposition of the agent. So
at a time where we should and will be having a discussion with buyers on providing value, it is certainly a tool that does that.
Yeah.
Yes. No, and again, full disclosure, we are involved in that. So, But take a look, see what you think. Yeah. You mentioned mine actually, so I'll shift to mine. Best real estate tech I saw in 2023 was milestones.ai. You touched on it lightly. It's
Go
great.
Deep on it. It's really cool. Yeah.
Well, I have been passionate for, probably a decade and a half about solving the problem of the fact that more than 90% of the people say they would use their real estate agent again, and less than 20% actually do. And the reason for that is it's not their job to remember us. It is our job to be memorable, and we don't do a great job at that. And there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, no human being is very good at making decisions that will benefit them 7, 10 years down the line. We're not wired for that. It isn't how our brains work. So that's all of us. Then in this industry, where sometimes I think people forget, real estate agents wake up every day and they have no idea where their next paycheck is going to come from. No idea. Yet those bills keep showing up every single month. And that causes the industry to be more near-term focused. That's just survival, right? That is the basic hierarchy of needs. Most people couldn't handle not getting a check every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever your payment cycle is. And so that, with a bunch of other stuff. So Milestones basically is working towards and has done some very interesting things on that sort of life cycle of home ownership. James, you and I have had many a whiskey.
Well, you've been talking about it longer than anyone, candidly.
Yeah, and it's the best thing I've seen so far at trying to solve for that and getting trajectory towards solving for being relevant in a real way. The problem with most of what's out there is that it isn't relevant at the intimate. Real estate's this really intimate transaction. I mean, you know things about your buyers and your sellers that their parents don't know, that their best friends don't know. It is an intimate transaction, and most of what I've seen that's out there lacks that intimacy. And Milestones still has some work to do, but I love the trajectory. And at their soul, they understand the intimacy and the level of connectivity that's required to bridge that gap. So mine would be Milestones AI.
You know, it's interesting because I remember you telling me this once, and it's literally stuck with me. You were talking about this before Milestones was even Milestones. We were having this conversation over cocktails, as usual, and
it's coffee or cocktail,
whatever. So it's unfiltered; it could be whatever it wants. So, but you were talking about that. I vividly remember this conversation that if we can actually get good at staying in touch with our clients over the 8 to 10 to 12 or 13, whatever the hell the year is, the amount of years that they own the property before they actually go to sell and buy a home again, that the whole concept of portals becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
And I always remembered that because I was like, okay, what do you mean? And then you were like, well, think about it. If the client's in touch with me, if I have a relationship with them, like not just a phony sending stupid CRM emails, but like an actual relevant sending them information they need to know. Their appliances, their refrigerator's on recall. Here's the process to do it. Came from the realtor. That the reality is when they think about selling, they don't go to a portal. They go directly back to the agent they've had a relationship with, and the portals become irrelevant. And it's interesting because you know that's exactly what Zillow's trying to do with their super app, is to create this box for that consumer to stay in, because their business model is flawed in that if the customer doesn't come back and they can't charge that referral fee or make a lead out of it, they have a financial problem, which is why they've been diversifying their business, among other things. But it's just, you've been on this for like 8 years. You've been talking about it.
It's because, and I'm a soapbox for 2 minutes. Someone start a timer. This industry gets so freaked out over threats, right? Everything's a threat. Everything's a freaking, I almost did it again. I'm a little riled up this morning.
You should.
Everything's a game-changing technology, right? And we're going to disintermediate the real estate agents. And so agents are all freak. Like, look, if you just solved that problem as a real estate professional, you would never, ever worry about whatever the next thing is that's supposed to take us out as an industry. It won't matter, because when the connectivity between a buyer and a seller and their real estate agent is deeper than anyone outside the industry understands. And if we can maintain that, then all these threats aren't threats.
Yeah.
They'll just call you or text you or, someday, I don't know, send a thought wave to you or however we're going to communicate in the future. It won't matter. All right, let's shift gears.
It's a fact. Just because like you have a list of people that you use. I do at least.
Yep.
And I just use them. I don't go shop them all the time. Like my handyman is my guy. Like he comes to my house and does everything, the end. And like I'm not on Angie's list trying to find somebody $10 cheaper. I'm like, I just know he does his job and he does it well, and I just want to have it taken care of. So
like look, I've started lifting again. My shoulder's killing me because I've ruined it over, decades of acting like an idiot in my life. And I'm trying to figure out what to do that's not surgery. And so I have 3 people that I trust with this. One's my sister, she's a doctor. One's my trainer, he's a smart guy. And like I've done a ton of Google searches. But what those 3 people say means so much more to me than the Google searches. Yeah. All right, we'll get off that soapbox. Okay, shifting gears. What real estate tech? So we said the best thing you saw in 2023. What real estate tech do you think we'll see or will have the biggest impact in 2024? So same question, but for 2024, not for 2023.
Will have the biggest impact?
Huh? Or are you most excited about? Or
I mean, I think that I get excited about the AI assistant piece. Yeah. I think there's something really interesting there because we only have so much time in the day. I think about like my schedule and the godforsaken amount of hours that I work, and if I could get an hour back by just having my emails responded to that didn't require like just I just and I know I'm the same as any other real estate agent that's running around. You've got kids. You're meeting with clients. Like all of the little things add up into big things. I think there's going to be some really interesting evolution in how to make people more efficient. I'm also really excited about that because we only have so much time. Time is money. So
mine is actually generative AI as well. I went a little more specific in lead nurture, not just assistant in your pocket. Mostly because I think real estate agents in general are kind of terrible at starting conversations. They're pretty rejection avoidant as a species. But man, once the conversation starts, they are fire. I mean, they are great once the conversation starts. And so you mentioned in passing, Howard Tager has some pretty cool tech around this. I've looked at a few others. Robert Reardon and his team at Constellation are working on something that's pretty cool. The company that really cracks the code on finding your voice and how to start conversations in an authentic way so that an agent can then jump into the conversation and run with it. I think we will see that in 2024. That will exist in 2024. And that the agents that really embrace that and don't get stuck in the, it's not me, it's not, this isn't exactly what I would say. You got to let a little bit of that go if it gets close enough where it's still authentic and your voice, and that it can start the conversation and then you just jump in.
It's going to get there though.
It will.
It's going to get there.
Yep.
It'll eventually be able to talk in your voice, and that's where it's going to get all wonky, but whatever. So.
Yeah, and that's there now. I mean, I know some agents that are doing short form video content where they write a script and the voice AI just talks. They don't do any they don't do anything. They write a script and get some B-roll and bam.
Also the downfall of America, but whatever.
Yeah, but then they'll develop an AI that can identify the fake AI.
And then we'll think it's fake, that it's a fake AI saying it's
and then it'll be just like today with the news. So it's fine.
Good point. Right.
Yeah. And yet we still exist. All right. Shifting gears to the one you wanted earlier. If you're ready to tell us the best leader in real estate for 2023, and it's ROBINSON, James, so that when you say it, I just want you to pronounce my name right. Go ahead.
I 100% agree. I'm picking two. I'm cheating. And they're going to be two completely people that most people would, they're not going to know one of them, or maybe somewhat, and then the other they'll know, but I get to give them credit. So my first is a gentleman named Ed Zorn. And the reason why I'm picking Ed Zorn is he's the general counsel for CRMLS, the largest MLS in the country. That guy is been so dead on accurate about everything related to these lawsuits from the beginning to end. And nobody knows how much this guy is working behind the scenes to help the industry move in the right direction. And I've learned so much from him this year, which is candidly when people are like, "Oh, you're the authority on it." I'm like, "No, I'm talking to smarter people than me. I just have access to them."
Which, by the way, is how you become an authority. So
I mean, but like, it's not. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know this stuff. I'm talking to lawyers. He is one of many, but he's by far one of my favorite. And the other one is this, and I'm going to be controversial here. I think Rob Hahn deserves to be looked at for this role.
The notorious one?
The notorious Rob.
ROB?
The notorious ROB. So he is the most controversial. I love this guy dearly. If you want to have a depressing conversation, Rob's your guy. And he has been on this long before.
Way before.
Every other person in residential real estate, and he is a retired lawyer. He is very smart, and I'm narrowing in here because there's a lot of stuff Rob and I don't agree on. I know you know that too, Keith. We all have to have long, fun conversations.
What's funny though, and that I'll let you do your thing, but Rob and I usually agree on trajectory.
Yeah.
He just always thinks the world's going to end in 7 minutes.
Well, he kind of wants that too. But
yeah. Like we don't agree on speed, but we usually agree on the direction. All right, continue.
Well, his coverage of things and his research and analysis on stuff has been better than anyone in the business. And again, he's not right all the time, and he says a lot of controversial stuff. I'm sure we do too. But that guy deserves credit for talking about this all the way back to 2019 when these cases were filed, and has been ringing the bell for a long time. And so in my opinion, I think from the people that have had the ability to see where the industry is going and forecast with related to where we are today. I think those two individuals have been, in many cases, not given the credit that's due for how they've been able to cover things. So
yeah, we're not in any way financially involved in Rob's newsletter.
No,
but it is one that I recommend. It's let me look it up real quick. It is
the
notoriousrob.com. And I recommend you subscribe.
You should, by the way. It's not very expensive, and the articles he writes are amazing. You got to pick through the stuff like anything and anyone, but like I always learn something from something that he writes. Always. So
same.
What about you?
Okay.
Who's yours?
I ducked this question a little bit. I didn't pick a specific person. I picked a leadership archetype. So my answer for best leader in real estate for 2023 is anyone. I don't care if you're running an office, if you've got a small independent, if you are a giant company like Anywhere, anyone who kept their agents in the game and focused in 2023. We were at peak distraction, peak burnout, peak frustration, peak drama, peak like everything except selling houses was being talked about. And anyone who managed to keep their agents in the game in 2023, you, if you can hear my voice, are my favorite leader for 2023. It was rough. It was rough. Yeah. All right. Biggest surprise. This could be industry. This could be economically. It could be politically. Anything you want. Biggest surprise. Biggest thing that made James Dwiggins' eyebrows go up and go, huh, in 2023. Oh, God. Don't get us canceled. Go.
Um...
No, I want to know what that was. I really want to. Whatever you were about to say that. Go ahead. It's fine.
I'm going to get pissed off everybody by saying it, but
we have good day jobs. We can figure it out.
The surprise for me is that we're running into an election with these two individuals. I just cringe for this country. I'm being honest, and I'm like, this is being totally vulnerable. But I couldn't think of two worse people that we're going to vote on for president, and like it is. I'm just going. This is what we've got, really. And I worry a lot for just where we are as a country, that we're not looking for better representation of who we are as a society. I'll just leave it at that. So
yeah,
there's that. That's where my brain went. So I'm being honest. So,
I like it. It's called Unfiltered for a reason. Okay, I'll ground us a little more. My biggest surprise in 2023 was the Fed pivot. Uncle Powell. Fair. Yeah, in over a 14-day period, he had a press conference 14 days before his big announcement that said, any talk of rate reductions, this is a quote from his speech, any talk of rate reductions are premature. And he repeated his higher for longer mantra that he's been on for years, literally. 14 days later, he got on the microphone and started singing love songs to the financial markets. I mean, he was dovish is an understatement. He basically released like flocks of doves into the sky, took raising rates off the table, started flirting with language, started talking rate cuts, and even flirted with language, speaking to as many as 5 rate cuts in 2024 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did over that 2-week period. I mean, maybe he went on a trip with someone that he loves deeply.
He was in Berkeley, and when you say trip, I think mushrooms, but that's fine.
Maybe, he might have gotten a hold of some of the wacky tobacco. I don't know what he did, but I have not seen a bigger pivot in 2023.
Hey, you know what? I'm fine with it. Let him eat those things, whatever he's doing, because it helped the rates come down. So
I'm a fan, but wow, that was a big one.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair. Notice we both went with government, though, by the way. Just keep
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's a great point. What do you think will be the biggest surprise in 2024?
Settlement.
Ooh, spicy. What do you mean?
The industry will settle these cases.
God, I hope so.
Despite the PR campaign going on about appeal and everything, which, by the way, it's clear, NAR has to do that. I understand the point of it. But I think a settlement will happen. I don't think it's possible for the industry to continue dealing with copycat litigation. It's expensive. And I think that you will see a push for a national settlement to take our licks, We have one in the lose column, and figure out, more importantly, and this is the most important part I'm going to say about this, is to start helping the customer and make sure that we're there to do it, because I fear a world where there's no representation as well. And I'm not saying that's the end, but I think that a settlement will occur. I think it will be controversial. I think there'll be lots of people and lots of camps on it, but my prediction is that happens in 2020, or at least the outline of a settlement that's proposed and agreed to by the plaintiffs and defendants. So
yeah, that's a good one, and I think it's possible. And it would somehow, I think it's very possible, and it will be a big surprise. Yeah. Mine is the market, the real estate market. I think that when we look back at the end of 2024, I think we will be pleasantly surprised at the results for the individuals who remained steadfast and focused and operated their business like a business and didn't get distracted. And those folks, people are going to grab market share in 2024. And the ones who do are going to look back and go, damn, that was a great year. I didn't think it would be, or I wasn't sure. And they're going to look back and be pleasantly surprised. All right, this is the question we always ask our guests, and now we're going to ask each other. And this doesn't have to be, you don't have to give some, I'm a CEO business answer. You might have a TV show that just was an escape that you really loved, that you think our listeners should hear about. But best book, pod, movie, or TV show in 2023?
I have been listening to a lot of podcasts for obvious reasons, just wanting to make sure we're doing our job correctly.
Yep.
And I have hooked in on pretty aggressively the Joe Rogan Experience. And the reason is I just love how he asks questions and just the diversity of his guests, both guests that he does not agree with on anything and guests that he does agree with on everything. And I've learned more from that podcast with some of the guests he's had on there, from scientists. I watched one with a lady who's an expert on honeybees and the effect it's having on agriculture. It's just to me, it's fascinating. I think that is an incredibly fun podcast to listen to. And I just like the fact it goes all over the place. There's no agenda. It's just really interesting people and really interesting conversations.
Yeah, it is. It's a great podcast. There are times where I'm like, geez, Joe. Like,
no, I get it. And Joe Rogan is Joe.
That's not quite science. Yeah. But what I love is he is a brilliant interviewer, and he's very thoughtful. Even when he doesn't agree, he's not like, he talks the way he communicates the way I wish we all would. Which is, when I don't agree with you, I don't have to yell at you. I don't have to call you names. I don't have to scream at you. I'm going to ask you some probing questions and challenge your thoughts. And I'm open to being convinced that I'm wrong. And I think he doesn't want to.
I just think I'm more interested in the guests he has, because he gets people I've never heard of, and just the conversations. Like he had these scientists on talking about how an asteroid potentially hit the North American continent. It was just, but it was the science they were showing was like, I had no idea. It was really fascinating. So, anyways, that's
we're gonna get crushed in the comments that Joe Rogan.
Whatever, I don't care. You asked me the question, and that's that.
I like it. I agree with you. Yeah. All right, my best book, pod, TV show 2023 is, and this actually came from the podcast. One of my favorite things about the podcast is when we ask this question, I always order the book or order the Audible or subscribe to the pod right away. And Damian Ailes gave us this one, Born to Run, on Audible, which is the autobiography of Bruce Springsteen, read by Bruce Springsteen. And if you're 50-something, like I am, Bruce Springsteen hit at a particular time in my life that was very memorable. And it was like having Bruce Springsteen in your living room telling you stories for hours and hours and hours. It was my favorite listening experience for 2023. All right, we got a few more, and we're running out of time. So let's hit these real quick. What pissed you off the most in 2023?
The narrative that a bunch of sellers got together because they were complaining about the way the industry operates and filed a class action suit, when we all know it had nothing to do with a bunch of sellers getting together, that this was lawyers getting together looking for people to create this mess. And I know it, and the lawyers know it, and they're going to bullshit around the fact that, like, oh yeah, Representative, you did not, you drummed it up and you created it. And now we're in this really difficult spot, not only for the industry. And I'm not saying our industry doesn't need to change, but I just genuinely, it pisses me off that this is such an infrequent transaction and we're making it more difficult for buyers and sellers. That to me that pissed me off. So
yeah, weren't some of the sellers who filed the suit literally on the stand saying things like
they had no problem with their agent?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Wow. Mine, here's what pissed me off the most in 2023. The negativity and distraction in residential real estate as an industry. Good Lord, folks. Like, turn it off. Please focus on your business. Focus on your clients. Let go of all of the bullshit. Like, set it aside. You could not pay attention to a lot of this stuff and go service the people who know you, trust you, and love you at the highest level, and you will have a great 2024. So the drama llama of residential real estate makes me tired sometimes, and it's funny, the positive people that I know are the ones who are winning.
Always.
The people who can shake it off, and I don't know why this analogy popped in my head, but in dog training they call it bounce back. Like, how quickly can you correct the dog when you're training it and it bounce back and it's ready to learn, right? And I think the agents who have the best bounce back are the ones who are going to thrive in this next few years in residential real estate. Okay, this is the final and probably the most important question for us in forecasting for 2024. James, how many F-bombs will you drop on the pod in 2024? How many? What's your over-under on F-bombs from you? We're at 1. We had 1 in 2023, not a full year, just so you have context before you pick your number. How many F-bombs from you in 2024?
Depends on how frustrated I get with all the decisions our industry is doing.
No, my number's big, so you go ahead.
Well, I was really good last year. I mean, you know me. Like, if you're in person, you know I don't mind.
Yeah.
It's who I am. It's people are like, you shouldn't swear. I'm like, get over it or don't listen. Like, that's just who I am. I'm authentic. So I'm going to go with what I had 1 last year. So I'm going to go with
1 last year. But we didn't have a full year of pods. We
fair.
Started in January. So
I'm going to go with 10. It's going to happen.
That's crazy. We did not work on this ahead of time, folks. James does not know my number. Mine is at 9.5. Mine is at 9.5 because, like any good bookie, I want the half a point in there because there's more people who lose that way.
I just like this is a conversation that, and I'll end it on this. I just feel like I feel like authenticity is important, and I think Americans are tired of the lack of authenticity. I'm being careful with my words here, but it's just it's like, if I'm feeling a certain way, I'm going to say how I feel. And I think that we should all do that a little bit more. If you're mad, be mad, share those emotions, get them out. Let's move on, So and
look, we started this podcast because we wanted an escape, right? We started this because we thought we need an hour of fun in our lives. Let's go do something for an hour a week where we can just talk and share our thoughts. And I guess from what I've been told, as far as trends and stuff, it's kind of turning into something of significance, which is cool.
And thank you, by the way, everybody who's listening and viewing.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. If you don't want to hear someone say F, then this probably isn't the pod for you, and that's okay, right? Like, that doesn't mean we need it in every sentence. They don't have to be sentence enhancers, right? But we're also going to say what we think and express ourselves to the best of our ability, and not be too embarrassed if our moms listen to it. That's what we're shooting for. Or at least that's what I'm shooting for. So
how many are you going to have in 2024? You didn't have 1.
I will have my first one in 2024. I will say that, most likely. I'm sure something's going to
almost happened today.
It did. It was perilously close today. Sorry, Mama. You tried. You raised me right, I promise. I just am kind of an idiot. So that's it. There is our look back at 2023 and our thoughts about 2024.
We've got some great guests coming on, though, too, by the way. 2020. This is going to be the most interesting year for our pod because our lineup is... It's going to be, it's pretty, not that last year wasn't amazing, but that trend is going to continue. So,
and let's end on this, to the people who have subscribed and listened. Thank you. I know I am honestly surprised, maybe I shouldn't be, but the fact that you all carve 30 to 50 to 60 minutes out of your day to listen to a couple idiots on a microphone tell you what you think means a lot to us. And we try to honor that. We try to honor that with who we get and how we get them and the questions that we ask. So we'll take 2 seconds to thank you very much for listening. And we got more stuff coming your direction in 2024. James, this was a good idea you had. Let's start a podcast. I'm glad you did it.
It was like you said, it's supposed to be a fun thing to just do whatever. It turned into a big thing. We got to get our act together. We have tens of thousands of listeners and viewers now. So
I'm not putting on a tie.
I'm not either. But I'll tell you, it's gonna get juicy this year with all the stuff we have coming on. So stay tuned. Lots of stuff coming out. Watch for the new releases, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, y'all. We love y'all.
Bye.
Talk to you later.
It's our job to say out loud what everybody's only thinking to themselves. It's your job to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode.